What you're going to see in the next hour is a capsulization of my 50-year spiritual search. When I was 22 years old, now I'm 75, I began a spiritual exploration. And what I've been doing is presenting the information at my coffee shop. So let me show you what my coffee shop and botanical shop looks like. This is the Oasis outside of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in a town called Carver. And we have night programs on holistic health, things like that. People come in here and just relax to help you remember why you came to the planet. And then these are my books. Many are written with indigenous elders. And the message is the same from the elders, from the shop, from my books, and that is, remember who you are, why you came. You are coming from the source, which is unconditional love, and you're here to represent that unconditional love in your life, to learn and teach love. So the main concept here is once you start to remember that and make that your goal, make that your lighthouse, your beacon, once you start to live that reality, you kick in the laws, the physics of love. Till then, you deal with the physics of fear. And I didn't know that when I started out 53 years ago. And so now I'm sharing that with the work that I've been doing. So aside from my shop, aside from my books, I've hosted 54 One Love events in Jamaica. I've hosted 15 One Love events on Native American reservations in Upper New York State. In Arizona, I've done almost 150 events in prisons in Western North Carolina, and I've done programs in Guatemala. And everything carries the same message. Just whatever religion, no religion, wherever you are in life, whether you're a Native American, a guy like me, or even in prison, if you will remember who you are, why you came, who sent you, and what is the assignment. You are a being of unconditional love, sent by the source of unconditional love to learn and teach love while you're here. And if you will do that, you will kick in, as you'll hear me talk about in the next hour, a series of miracles that are so eloquent and do one thing. They're eloquent as you can imagine, and they expand love in whatever situation that you're gone into. And you'll see that during my 1-hour presentation. Now, my masterpiece, which I'm not fully responsible for, is my daughter Alicia. And she came to town the last few days, and I wanted to get her in here. So she's not, of course, her mother had a big hand in who she is, and other people, and she's also got 4 Rastafarian grandfathers in Jamaica. You're going to meet them in the rest of the show. So I thought, oh good, let me put my daughter, say a few words to you. So this is my masterpiece.
Well, as I sit here right now, I feel like we're in this time of great turmoil. I'm seeing it all around us. I'm seeing it with the shifts politically, but I'm also seeing in the natural world this incredible organization that's coming together. And when I say the natural world, I don't just mean that in nature, but in people too. The people are getting ideas, they've had ideas, they've been working on them for years, some underground, some in bigger ways, but now we're finding that as things get more churned up and more chaotic and more crazy than ever, people are going to be ready for new solutions, and they're going to be ready for these technologies that are coming out that were already existing, and that they're going to be ready finally to see these things. And I think that's some of the technology that he'll talk about later, and also just choosing our own technology that's in our own body is through meditation, through working with our DNA, through our thoughts and our mind, we're able to bring our lives more alive, more joyful, and more full of love every day. And so it is truly a choice that we make every day that changes our DNA, then heals our own bodies, to choose to be in love despite all of that is swirling around us, that we are the beacons, that we are the grounding points that ground that message of love, that ground the joy in this world and brings it forward. So I encourage you to continue on the path of love, and also ask, how can I contribute to these new ways of being that can bring us together in beautiful ways that we could have never imagined.
And just so you'll know, given my 53 years working this out and working with this physics of love, and then working with her with it. She's in her mid-30s. We got almost 90 years of working with the physics of love. And you're going to hear from me what I've done in the books and everything, but after graduating top of her class from UNC Wilmington, my daughter opened up a yoga and sustainable goods empire in Charlotte. At 24, at 28, she sold it, put everything in a backpack, and for a year and a half by herself, traveled all around the world, Portugal, New Zealand, Australia, Maldives, Thailand, etc. Came back by herself, came back and then basically bought a van, and van traveled for 6 months, 2 years out on the road, and then ended up in Paradise Valley, Montana, where she bought 20 acres and a small home, and 25 feet below this is a 126 person bunker that was built by a cult that I actually wrote about in my hippie book 40 years ago. I wrote about it. And unbeknownst to either of us, she ended up buying the land that had one of these bunkers that a cult had built that I wrote about 40 years earlier. That gives you an idea of some of the magic. So my life is explained in the next hour, but I wanted to let you know what she's already produced at 35, given working with the physics of love. And she's also got a great relationship with James, her husband, who's a miraculous individual who's been working with the physics of love since he was in his mid-20s, mid-30s, when a serious health event got him off of the track of the physics of greed and fear and ego that he was pursuing in Manhattan as an executive. So what we can tell you is it works, and it's simple. You don't have to even be literate. Get up every day and see how much you can give to the world rather than getting up every day and seeing how much you can get from the world. So is it forgiving or forgetting? And it works. So enjoy what you're about to see. Okay, greetings. Now, before you click somewhere else on the internet, because you may not know me, I want to tell you, and I'm going to back it up with videos, how you can live a mystical life, a purpose-driven life that will go way past your wildest imaginations. So I'm presenting the information. I'm going to kind of go from one thing to another. And joining me are two good friends of mine that know about a lot of this information. And why don't you show you guys? So this is Colin. He's a friend of mine that goes it. And this is Pax, my camera woman. But to grab your attention quick, I'm going to talk to you about a series of events that's happened over a 30-year period. The most mind-blowing of them is when the Jamaican government turned over Bob Marley's 60th to me, a white guy from a former slaveholding state. The Jamaican government turned over Bob's 60th concert in downtown Kingston, and me and my daughter and my wife at the time were the opening addresses, and then I controlled the stage for the next 6 hours and invited other teachers of love to join us. And here's what that event looked like.
February 6, 2005 would have been the 60th birthday of reggae legend Bob Marley. The occasion was marked by a huge concert on Knutsford Boulevard in Kingston. The night featured musical performances and poetry by many of Jamaica's top cultural artists. The concert was a collaborative event involving the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission and the Roskind family. Robert and Julia Roskind are Americans who first visited the island 4 years ago. They were so deeply impacted by the spirit of the nation that they have now become advocates of the One Love philosophy.
As I mentioned, we came here 4 years ago on a family vacation like hundreds of thousands of other people. But we left and went home with our faith in humanity restored after access to your culture and your people. Like all of us, we are not immune to suffering, is that we represent the voice of millions of people around the planet who love you and love this country for the one love vibration you have sent out.
The Roskind family shares the government's belief, which is encapsulated in the Values and Attitudes campaign, that peace and love reside in all of us, and that if these qualities were allowed to come forth, the result would be a better society for all.
Okay, so just to give you an idea of what you just saw, talk about something that would blow your mind. Here's the Jamaican government turning over their biggest concert in their history, spending a lot of money to stage it, and handing it over to me. And basically, as you can see, it's on the stage there was the Governor General, tourist ministers, etc. But I designed the program, I invited, and no one got invited that the Jamaican people hadn't told me many, many times that person teaches love in Jamaica. So I invited 34 people over 6 hours that were well-known teachers of love in Jamaica, and hosted that event. And my 17-year-old daughter from Watauga County, North Carolina, was the opening speaker. Now, if that's not a miracle, you see, so when I'm about to explain is, how do you live a miraculous life? How do you live a mystical life? How do you live a life that surpasses every expectation you ever had, and it's not difficult? And now that was in 2005, and that was, 18 years ago. It's continued since then, and it began before then. I discovered a rule set. I didn't discover it. I was led to a rule set of how do you do this. And once you begin to understand some of the rule set involved, then you're given assistance from the other side. Because I can tell you right now, and this was the 54th event we did in Jamaica. We did 53 events over a 2.5-year period, right? And the only way that could have happened is if we were getting some kind of assistance, because I didn't have any money, I didn't have any notoriety, or whatever. I had written a book with the elder Rastas of Jamaica called Rasta Heart. And in the process, it had changed my daughter. My daughter at 13 had 4 Rastafarian grandfathers. Isn't that a great picture?
Yeah.
Now she's 35. That's her now, right? And I was so pleased by the time she was 17, and she had Rastafarian grandfathers. She had spoken at 54 events. I wanted to give back to Jamaica. So I didn't know how to do that. And then it hit me when I introduced the book. No one in the United States much cares about it. I would go down to Jamaica and I would introduce the event in Jamaica at Bob Marley's home, which is the biggest tourist attraction. And that's how I would do it. Now, there's a whole series of miracles that allowed Mama B, Bob Marley's mother. Let me show you a picture of her. Bob Marley's mother had never allowed anyone to use that home since Bob died 30 years earlier. But after I went and talked to her, this is Bob Marley's home, which is the #1 tourist attraction in Jamaica, right? And me and Scram, the guy who's featured in the Rasta Heart book, went and met with his mother, Mama B, and for the first time, Mama B allowed a third party to use the home. Again, you're talking about a white guy who looked like he stepped off the golf course in Montego Bay. I didn't have a name, I didn't have notoriety, I didn't have anything. But for that to happen, it took a series of miracles. And so when I tell you, you will be given assistance on this path once you understand the path and live the path, I know what I'm talking about, because it could not have happened any other way. Just for instance, the way I got to use it, when I went down there to use the home, I knocked on the door of the manager, said I'd like to rent the backyard to host the event on One Love on Bob Marley's 57th birthday. And I want to do that because everyone on this island knows every word to every Bob Marley song. And every Bob Marley song is a sermon at a very high level. But you're starting to switch over to dance hall and all that. And the reason Jamaica is a mind-blowing country and has changed the world and people all over the world love you is because of that music. So what I want to do is bring your teachers of love together and on Bob's 57th and tell the people through a press conference in the backyard that, you know, this is what we need to do. We need to keep his vibe alive and heal this country more and more with one love. So when I knocked on the door of the manager of the home, and I said, can I rent the backyard to host this event in the upcoming birthday, coming up in a few weeks on his 57th, this is in 2002, he said, we never rent the place out, you can't. I said, well, if I could, who could lend it to me? Who could give me approval? He said, well, only Bob Marley's mother, Mama B, could do that. I said, can I have Mama B's phone number? No, Mom, we don't give Mama B's phone number to anybody. So I got turned down. I'm thinking, well, I didn't know that. I thought you could rent it. And I walked out kind of thinking, darn, I was hoping to have the book introduction here. And we walk outside. Here's Scram, again, the guy that's featured in the Rasta Heart book. And who's sitting outside? Two of Bob's famous reggae Grammy Award-winning artists, Stephen Marley and Damon Marley, known as Junior Gong.
His nephews, right?
No, it's his sons.
His sons, okay.
There's these two of his sons.
Oh, okay.
And what's the chance of that? You see the miracles happening? I just got turned down. We walk out. There's not one, but two of his sons sitting on the curb smoking a joint. You know what I mean? And then they live in the United States. They don't even live in Jamaica. And so Scram and I go up to them and say, guys, we want to assemble your teachers of love, like yourself, like any of your family members, on your father's upcoming birthday, and remind people to heal this island with one love. Because you got billboards all over Jamaica that says, with your father's image, one love, Jamaica's message to the world. And you're the murder capital of the world per capita. You know, and yet your father's image is everyone reminding people to teach love. So can we have your grandmother's phone number to call your grandmother to ask her if we can use the facility? And they looked at me and thinking, no, Mom, I'm not going to give, we don't give grandmas the phone number to nobody. And I know they think the whole concept is ludicrous. Turned down twice in 7 minutes. We thanked them. I understood. I kind of expected it after the manager said the same thing. We're walking away and there's a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around and there's an elderly Jamaican man. He said, I just heard what you told my nephews. And my nephew, Bob, would want this place used just for that. Here is Mama B's phone number, and you call Mama B, and you tell Mama B her brother John said to give you a listening ear. You know, what's the chance of that? And when I called Mama B and asked her, I'd come see her on the other end of the island, she said, you want to, but you can't use it. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get a no. And after I had read Pax this earlier, because I tape recorded the whole thing, videoed it. After listening to what I was doing, she sat there and I said, so Mama B, I'm on the same mission your son was on. Now she was in the room with Bob's former lawyer and confidant, Diane Jobson, who didn't like my idea at all, didn't like me. And she challenged everything in front of Mama B. And except when she said, you need to stay in your own damn country and tell Americans to be more loving. You don't need to be coming down here. And I said, well, Mama B, by your definition, Bobson never left Jamaica, right? So what do you mean? I said, basically, you're saying that whatever the politicians say is your country, you need to stay in your country. I said, America's not my country. Jamaica's not your country. We're citizens of the world. This is the human race thing. This isn't about because some politician said this is a country called Jamaica, and that's your home. You're not a Jamaican person. I mean, that's for legal status, whatever. She couldn't answer that. And when I turned to Mama B and I said, Mama B, I expected a no. Don't feel bad. I don't want to put pressure on you. What do you think? Can I use it? I'm expecting you to say no. She sat there for 2 or 3 minutes. It felt like an hour, but I knew exactly what she was doing. She was still conflicted. Am I going to let this white, short-haired man do this? You know? Mm-hmm. And then she said the following. I'll read you a short version of what she said to me, because I videoed it and wrote it in here. She basically said, he said, the one love that Bob has gone out there and preached so many times in his music, just talking to people and showing people the right way in life, what is best for everyone, because of that was his mission. He has done a lot because he touched a lot of people. Even you speaking here to me, he has touched you. And then she goes on to say, and they come from far away just to be near where he's buried, because he's buried on that property. He's done his best. And she ends it by saying this, I cannot imagine what it must be like for you. No, that was me speaking, excuse me. Oh, here it is. Okay, she says, they should appreciate all the good that Bob has done for them. Now he has opened up their mentality to the reality. And I think that if you can get people to stop and think for a moment, then they would see and feel the greatness. But I guess everyone has not even been concerned with that at times. But those are the concerns that are holding up the fort, and you are one of those people, and you can use the home. And then she said, I want you to go and be in the crypt where Bob is buried, which is a tourist attraction. I'm going to tell the guides to get everybody away from the crypt, and I'm going to make lunch, and I want you and to go up and be alone with my son in the crypt. You know what I mean? And he's buried there. His guitar's on top. It's a large kind of, maybe, I don't know, 10-foot by 20-foot building. And I went up there and for a half hour. Now, I wish I could say I had some mystical experience. I'd been up all night. My mind was blown by everything that already happened, so I didn't. But imagine that. Imagine that that was a set of circumstances that placed me in that home. Now I had to go out and ask well-known teachers of love that Jamaican people said, here are the top teachers of love in Jamaica, and there were 11 names. I had to go ask them. They didn't know me either. Would you join me? But when I told them I had Bob's backyard, they were blown away. Like, how'd you get it? Well, Mama B said I could use it. You see it? Mm-hmm. And so they said, if Mama B likes this guy and is going to let him be the first in 30 years to use it, I'm going to say yes to him. And they did. And that was the first of 54 events. Now, it even gets more mystical than that. So you can see that if those boys hadn't been out there, if the first guy hadn't turned me down, if their uncle hadn't intervened, if Mama B hadn't said yes, and I was just going to have the event in a rented room or something, when I went to ask all these teachers of love that are so well known in Jamaica, they may have not taken me seriously. So the first thing that happened is they all said yes. Now only 6 of the 11 were on the island on that day, and they all came because she endorsed me. But it gets better than that. How can it get much better than that? If you were to Google the name Robert Roskind, and here's the way you spell it. If you were to Google that name, and that's okay, you'll see it on the below the link of this anyway, you would notice there's 2. There's me, and there's my cousin Bobby, who I'm very, very close with. He's called Robert out in the business world. He runs a $2 billion company in downtown Manhattan, okay, called Lexington Realty. Bobby and I have always been close. Even though I got like no money and he's got a 10-acre compound with 3 homes, his daughter's home, his son's his home, a big pool house, clay courts, you get the picture. And he drives into Manhattan every day with a chauffeur who loves him and he loves. So Bobby calls me and he says, now how does that relate to this? Bobby calls me and he says, cuz you're not going to believe the story I'm about to tell you. I said, let me hear it. Yeah, this is my cousin Bobby, also known in the world as Robert Roskind. He's actually kind of famous in the real estate industry. And he said, Bob Marley's widow, Rita Marley, just came through the Mobay airport and she saw that you used illegally Bob's picture on the book. Whenever the Marley family, any of his sons or anything, see that someone's infringed on the right to use his name or likeness, they called the number one, at the time, the number one entertainment lawyer in the world, Peter Shukot. And Peter represents McCartney, represents Lady Gaga, Madonna, and the Marley family. And Peter, who makes like $1,000 an hour, which was a lot of money back then, just talking going back like to 2000. And they call Peter, and Peter sues that person to stop it. And so Rita just saw your book in Mobay. She just got off the plane in Miami. She called Peter Shukot and said, I want you to sue a man named Robert Roskind and get all the books off the shelves. Well, and Bobby said, Peter Shukot is my best friend from Penn State and Wharton. Now, you know, and so Bobby, Peter says to Bobby, did you write a book with Bob Marley illegally undercover? He said, no, that's the other Robert Roskind, my cousin in North Carolina. Well, Rita wants me to sue him. He said, call Rita back, Peter, and tell her that it's about the same message Bob was on. He gives all the money from the book to the elder Rastas. It's not a money thing. So, and to just say, leave him alone, he's doing the same thing. Now, Rita gets a call from a very cynical lawyer. A New York, Manhattan entertainment lawyer is about as cynical as they get. Mm-hmm. So he calls Rita and says, Rita, I am close with this family. I am best friends with the cousin. And I want to tell you that just leave him alone, let him have his head, because it's all about Bob's message. So now, not only am I endorsed by someone, I'm endorsed by someone whose credibility could not be questioned. So now think of this, there was only one name in 7 billion names on the planet that could have stopped this lawsuit. So it's 1 in a 7 billion chance.
Yeah, that's
right?
wild.
And not only did, if she had sued me, I would have never done 54 events down there. If Mama B, if that uncle wasn't there, if Mama B hadn't said yes, I would have never done any of the events. So now I'm endorsed by her lawyer, and not only that, if I can find it later, I have a picture of me and Rita appearing at a open forum about her husband. So you remember, you got to understand the miracles that happen. A white guy with no dreads, no reputation. I wasn't a video producer or a music producer or anything like that. And it just, series of events that came together. Well, there's already 1 in 7 billion. But then you add the other things I mentioned, it's really like 1 in 10 billion. Now, once you've got 1 in 10 billion, we're in miracle land. You know, this is not just luck. This is miracle land. To make it even more amazing, we go up, when Bobby was on the island in Jamaica with me and my wife and my daughter and his son, we end up going up to see a video of Bob's 50th event. That was Bob's 60th, Bob's 50th. Who put on Bob's big 50th celebration? A man named Chris Blackwell. Chris Blackwell was a white Jamaican Jew who made Bob famous. So he made Bob famous and in Island Records. And Chris owns the estate called Orcabessa that Ian Fleming used to own. And he's hosting a big celebration of Bob's 50 with Lauryn Hill and all these famous people performing Bob's music. And a friend of mine had that's Chris Blackwell, I think. Yeah, that's Chris. So Chris, so Bobby and I and my family and his were watching a DVD that had just come out of this 50th birthday. And it was being sold in the Bob Marley Experience in Mobay, where they also sold my book. So the guy, Jaime, who owned the store, said, when your cousin Bobby comes into the island, I want you and your daughter and wife and his son to come up and we'll watch this new video that just came out. So we go up to Jaime's house and we're watching the video, and Bobby looks at Jaime and says, Jaime, stop the video right there. So, well, look, what the hell is this about? And he does, and Bobby walks up to the big screen TV and he said, you see this VIP section with 4 people in it? He says, that's Chris Blackwell and Chris's wife and me and my wife. I said, how do you know Chris Blackwell? He says, I'm in the hotel business. We manage 5 of his hotels in Jamaica. So now the other Robert Roskind is close personal friends with the man that made Bobby famous, Bob Marley famous, and also, is close friends with the guy that, is, the lawyer that would have sued me. You see the series of events that's going on here? So this is the first rule set. And it's really the only thing you have to know. And it's been the 5,000 year ascent of humanity is summed up in this. And it's been said by every great spiritual teacher, and that is, know who you are. Human, who are you? We've misinterpreted that, except in indigenous cultures. Indigenous cultures knew that humans were one with each other, one with their creator, one with the planet. You see it? And they lived for tens of thousands of years. If we were right in this spot, say 600 years ago, we'd be Cherokee Indians. And there would be absolutely no dissent in the tribe. There would be no jails. There'd be no money in the tribe, because they knew the reality of who they were. We're one with our creator. We're one with each other. We're one with the planet. Then comes this new system, this Babylonian system that conquered this continent and all everywhere else in the world. This was the last place to be conquered by the system, which says what? It says the opposite. You're separate from each other. You're white, you're black, you're gay, you're straight, you're Democrat, you're Republican. You're one with each other. You're separate from each other. You're separate from the creator. You got to earn his, join the right religion, do the right thing, and you're separate from the earth. You see the difference? That's the core difference. And from them, almost all of human suffering has exuded from that one mistaken concept. Now, if we were Native Americans on this place, here's what our life would be like. They went, and when they were conquered, the conquerors, the colonists came and said, well, where are your chiefs? Well, that man over there is the chief. Well, doesn't he live in a big house like our president? Doesn't he wear a special outfit? Oh, no, he's just, well, and how come women can never be chief? Well, the women hold the clan title. The clan mothers choose the chief, because women know the hearts better than men. And they can go running bear when the other chief died. They can say, running bear always puts everyone in front of himself. Running bear will be our new chief. And if he doesn't do right, they take the title away. Right? And so that was, and he could not demand or command, he could only persuade. Well, how come you're still living in the same lodges and teepees and that you lived in 10,000 years ago? Well, that's just where we shelter from weather. Our home is what you would call the wilderness. Our home is you people call it wilderness. We call it our home. We don't want to be out when we can be in the creator's, place. But where's your special, your special one day of the week where you praise the creator? They go, what are you talking about? Well, like Sunday morning for an hour. Well, we're always in contact with the Great Spirit. We don't have one day a week that we do it. You see it? The difference. So, and to the colonist, it was like, well, where are your books? Where are your spiritual leaders? Well, there is no spiritual leader. Everyone's in contact with Great Spirit all during the day. Well, how do you decide who's going to do what job? Well, there are 12 jobs that need to be done. Raising children, taking care of the sick, taking care of the elderly, building shelter, growing food, protecting the tribe. As the person matures, they are drawn to one of the 12 clans out of their own personal preference. So they become a protector clan, which we call warriors. Then they protect the tribe from whatever. They love to grow food. They love to care for elderly people. And they just contribute that energy every day to the tribe. And then everyone is shared up everything. So if we would be living with maybe 500 to 1,000 people, probably closer to 500, that we had known our whole life, right? and that we all shared, and there was no clan that was more important than the other. So the people that took care of the elderly and the sick and the kids were held in the same level as the people that provided the food, did the honey, and was the chiefs. What a beautiful system. You were taken care of from cradle to grave. Can you imagine what a great system that was? So now we find now we find that the entire planet over the last 5,000 years of recorded history. Remember, there's a lot we don't know. We just go back to recorded history, 5,000 years to Sumeria and India and everything. So what happens next is, after 5,000 years, and now this is all gone downhill, but not really. We had to experience all this. We're at the verge, and everyone watching, and we all know we're on the verge. We're very delicate. You know, the future does not look promising for the human race according to the facts on the table, but there's facts that are well beyond there that most people don't know. And that means the only way out, we're not going to vote in the right president. We're not going to end enough wars. We're not going to clean up the food supply. The only chance for humanity to have a better and better and better future is to remember all this, is to awaken. You see it? It's the only chance. But not only that, it's why the schoolhouse of planet Earth was put together to do that. Mm-hmm. So the only chance we have is the whole reason that humanity has come to the schoolhouse, and we've incarnated here to learn we are not separate from the God. We are not separate from each other. We are not separate from our planet. We are part of it, and we don't have to get a majority of the people knowing that. We just have to get a certain percent of 1%. They say it's the square root of 1%, and that goes out into the collective vibe, and the collective vibe shifts with that. We are underway now, and there's a wonderful book out that's channeled to a woman named Sarah Landon. This came out 8 months ago. It's called The Wisdom of the Council, and these are the ascended masters who have ascended, conquered the physical plane, conquered the emotional plane, and now, out of service to their fellow beings, have come to the planet and delivered information through her. You know, beings like Jesus, beings like Buddha, you know, these high-level beings are now telling us, look, here's the deal, is that you are going to make it. We're going to have a new earth, like an earth you've never seen, you've never even read about. A new earth is coming, and a new human is coming, a human that remembers all this and lives this. And of course, what comes up in the face of that is, oh yeah, well, how's that going to happen? What they say in the book is, that's not your job. Your job is not to know how this is going to happen. Well, then what is our job? Your job is to create the new earth within yourself, so that you add that to the collective consciousness of humanity, right? So when you get to that percent of 1%, it'll flip. And you have no idea how it's going to happen. You've never seen it on the planet anywhere, but there have been some examples. For instance, when enough black Southerners saw that up north through TV, the blacks there were treated better, and they got to the point where I don't have to put up with this, even though it's been going on for 400 years, they created Martin Luther King. When enough British had it after World War II, with the English ruling them and sending them into war, when enough Indian people had it, they created Gandhi. When enough South Africans had it with apartheid, they created Mandela. Now, these were not people that ever thought they'd be world famous. These did not come from rich families or powerful families. Mm-hmm. Gandhi was a tongue-tied lawyer who, was not even a successful lawyer. Martin Luther King was a brand new minister, 20-something years of age, who loved expensive suits. His father was a sharecropper. And neither Martin Luther King Sr. or Martin Luther King Jr., that wasn't their original names on the birth certificates. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King Sr. changed their name to honor Martin Luther. So these people remembered what I'm about to tell you, the rule set. Here's the rule set. that does it. Because they remembered it, they didn't know it when they began to do the work. They didn't know this. They didn't know that if you remember who you are, I am a spiritual being sent by a loving creator. The assignment that he's given me is, or she's given me, is to offer love and forgiveness no matter what. And you see how they each remembered that? So Martin Luther King remembered that on the streets of Selma, Alabama. Mandela remembered it in Soweto. Gandhi remembered it in Bombay. They knew to teach love in the face of great oppression, great hatred, and that if they remember, I am a spiritual being sent to planet Earth by my Creator to learn and teach his or her love. You see it? Once you've done that, your life becomes mystical. And proven by them. None of them knew that when they were in their 20s. They slowly, so if you're out there watching it, I had to take a lot of LSD when I was in my 20s to start to go on this path. Don't worry about it. You're not supposed to remember, because you're supposed to fully experience the human dilemma, which is forgetfulness. Did you guys hear clicking over there?
It's back there.
Oh, Colin, would you check the
Sounds like a dripping.
sinks?
You want me,
Yeah.
you want me to check it?
If you want, yeah.
I think I know.
And okay, that's where it's coming. It's kind of annoying. So once they began to remember it, and they were loving people to begin with, they began to remember it and they started to live it. They, like me, began to understand that, oh my God, the more I remember this, the more I'm taking on some magical journey where doors are open and other doors are shut, that takes me to be Martin Luther King, that takes me to be Mandela, it takes me to be Bob Marley, it takes me to be Buddha. Mm-hmm. So in their 20s, who knows what they're doing with this little clicky noise. So once and if we can't find it, I can live with it, and so can the audience.
Yeah, it's not coming from back there. So.
Oh, it's probably, okay, anyway, let's let it be. So once they began to remember it, they noticed that a series of miracles started happening in their life, and that made them more and more and more committed to the path. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let it be, Pax, because it's, I don't want the diversion, and I don't mind having the diversion, because anybody watching this understands this is a presentation at a soul level. This is not a presentation at a professional level. I don't do that. Okay. So you can begin to see, like what happened to me, when you start to, and because you're loving, we're the way showers, we're the ones that came early. We're the leaders of this new earth. If you're watching this and you're still with it and you hadn't clicked over to some TikTok thing, then you're a way shower. That means you volunteered to come to planet Earth to help your human family make this transition. That's what they're telling us. This woman, who was a corporate woman, who was chosen to bring this, has written a 200-page book of pure, loving, spiritual doctrine that I couldn't write, and I've been on a spiritual path since my LSD trip 55 years ago. And here's what they're saying. So the other rule set is, as you start to remember who you are and why you're here, things start to blow your mind to the point that you want to do it more and more and more. You see it? And whether you're Martin Luther King and you think, I'm going to go out and lead the people, through Selma, even if I get killed, or whether you're Gandhi, I'm going to lead the people to make salt of the ocean and all the things he did, even if I get killed. You see it? I'm going to do it because I know that this is what I designed to do. And then you're fearless. I know that you're not fearless. Fear doesn't make your decision. We have fear, but fear doesn't go, oh my God, I'm not going to go into Selma and walk Selma 50 miles to Montgomery. Well, I'll probably get shot. So you have fears, but you don't let the fear make your decision. Like we were talking with Hunter today. When we did some of our events in Jamaica, there was a woman, I won't even mention her name, she was a talk show host in Jamaica, who didn't like what I was doing, and she said I was sent by the CIA to pacify the Jamaican people, make them more passive. And she was saying this in an event that we did called the Fires of Forgiveness. Would you get me the right on that post in the middle? See what's this right there? Fires of Forgiveness. We hosted an event in Jamaica called the Fires of Forgiveness, so right before the event, she starts railing that we've put this event on to pacify the tall ships. Here's what it says. This is the poster I did and put all over Jamaica. I went down 7 weeks early. It was in June 14th, 2003. It says, on June 14th, the tall ships, similar to slave ships, will be in Jamaica. At the Port Antonio waterfront, we will host an international healing ceremony and light a bonfire and ask the world that 400 years of African slavery be forgiven but never forgotten. The image of the descendants of slaves offering forgiveness will be a powerful symbol of healing and love. At the exact moment that this bonfire is lit, we are also inviting all Jamaicans to safely light their own fire of forgiveness, if only a candle, and by doing so, forgive anyone they are holding bitterly in their hearts. That night, Jamaica will be ablaze, and forgiveness and one love will be Jamaica's message to the world. And then there's a quote from Martin Luther King: forgiveness is not an occasional act, it's a permanent attitude. So we hosted this event. My daughter was then 14 years old, and the mayor of Port Antonio, which is who had rented for $70 the waterfront area for me to host it, called me and said, look, Kingston federal government doesn't want you to do this. So we want to come by and get the $70 back, and we're going to cancel it. I said, I've been planning this for a year. I've been down here for 7 weeks spreading the word. Do you think that I'm going to pack up and get on a plane and go home? I said, Mayor Thomas, I said, we're going to hold the event, and if you want to send the police out to arrest all of us, press people, Jamaicans, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, it ain't going to be your highlight as your term as mayor of Port Antonio, I can tell you that. He said, look, Robert, I like what you're doing. All I can tell you is the federal government told me to pull your police protection, pull the electricity, and don't let you do it. He said, so I got to tell you, this woman with the talk show has been stirring up bad people, saying that you're with the CIA, and I can't send the police out there. So I said, he said, but I'm not going to send the police to arrest you, but I can't send the police to protect you. So I looked at Alicia later that night and I said, sweetheart, she's 14 years old. I said, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night. I don't know, someone may try to kill us. I said, so you may want to stay in a hotel and make sure that I've left you arrangements to get home if I don't make it. And I said, because I don't know now. We may not have power, may not have police protection. And I'm with the elder Rastas and her now. All the elder Rastas are her Rastafarian grandfathers. And she says, Dad, I'm willing to die for this. I just hope I don't end up in a wheelchair. And Bongo Roach, this gentleman here, said he's listening to her at 14 and goes, she's a lioness. You know? So, because she knew by then that we were on a sacred path, that if it was meant to be, like Martin was killed at 30-something, Gandhi at 81, you know what I mean? Mandela was put in jail for 28 years. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And that's why she is the person she is now. Can you imagine 14 years old and confronting that reality? Yeah. You know? And of course it went off without that. It didn't happen. They did leave the electricity on. You know, so when you begin to remember who all of us are one with each other, one with the planet, one with the Creator, and that you personally have volunteered to come to planet Earth at the most critical time in human history. There is no better show in the universe than what's going on planet Earth right now. We got a front row seat for the most amazing thing that's ever happened, according to them, in the history of the universe. That an entire species is about to go from fear to love at an expedited rate. It's mind-blowing. And here's what they say. I mean, it's just, you can see where this information will sound familiar to you. So here's how the Council of Elders puts it. That is what the Great Awakening presents you with. The potential as a human family to collectively elevate your consciousness out of fear and lack and suffering forevermore to an experience of joy, peace, harmony, and abundance for all. It's not your job to figure out how to do all of that. Thank God, because I can't figure. I've been thinking for 50 years and I can't figure it out. It's not your job to figure out how to do all that. Well, then what is our job? It's your job to hold the vision, to create it for yourself, to live it now, to choose it now, to bring it within you, to be it now, and to allow it to express fully through you. What a beautiful life goal. I mean, you know, if you accept this, and you will, now that you've heard it, you can't put it aside. What more beautiful way to live your life than accepting the fact that your position as a way shower is to come to planet Earth and live it within you so you can help move the entire species into a love-based reality. So how do we live it? Easy. The only thing blocking each one of us from being 100% love is our fears. So it's easy. It's not simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's not easy. Then you begin to ask yourself, let me look at every fear I can identify and make peace with it. At least bring it down to 49% so it doesn't make my decisions in that area. And then you will find all your fears will be delivered to you. I just had that in a relationship, in a romantic relationship. You know what I mean? Where I had to look at my fears and make peace with it, and then it beautifully resolved itself in the way it should. You know, and we were talking with someone today, they had the same situation. So whatever your fear is, thank God they're not demanding 100% no fear. You know, I used to have, when I was 42, I'm 76 now. When I was 42, I was facing a possible bankruptcy. I was really fear-based. I was having high blood pressure, etc. And I got trapped in a hotel room in St. Louis through a series of events. And in that hotel room, I made peace with the fear. I brought it from maybe 60% down to 48%. And I just told the Creator, as much as I believed in him at the time, and it comes and goes, we all know that. I can go a whole day and barely think about him or her. I said, you know, if the only way I'm going to go through and learn my lessons of life is a bankruptcy, I'm willing to accept that if I failed in business, doesn't mean I'm a failure as a person. And I made peace with it, and I brought it down to 48%, and I have not had one financial problem in 30-something years since then. Now, it took 2 years to correct what was going on, but it moved in correction so that I didn't. And now, over the last 30-something years, my fear about money is in the single digits. It's almost gone. You know what I mean? And you know, at 76, I opened this place at 65. Panorama showing this place, if you would, Pax. This is the Oasis, and this is a botanical cafe and a botanical, lounge. And I operate it and, work with people all day with this, mostly youths, because it is a college town. And at 65 years old, I opened this place, and I needed money. There's not a lot of job demands for a visionary, to tell you the truth. That's all I am. So I'm 65 years old. I got $900 coming in for Social Security. I had enough money to open this place, and I did it. I tried to open it 55 years ago down the street as a hippie, and I opened this place. And not only has it grown in 10 years and matured, but once we did the botanicals 6 years ago, it now pays for my daughter, upkeep, my son-in-laws, my own, and it's bought her a home in Montana, and it bought me a home down the street here where I live and they spend the winter here with me to get rid of going to the Montana cold, right? And so the three of us do not have to worry about money. We have a home, and just to show you how mind-blowing it gets in this equation of things, my daughter, who opened the biggest yoga empire in Charlotte at 24, this will be the last story because we're getting close to the hour. She opened it at 24, the biggest yoga empire in Charlotte called Okra, 24-year-old kid. She had 20 yoga teachers, 48 classes a week. She had a little kava coffee shop in it. She had a gift shop in it. She had 3 massage rooms. So you could take yoga, you can have a drink, you can get massage, called Okra. And then she opened next door to that a sustainable goods store called Gumbo, which is the only word that goes with okra. You know what I mean? The only word you'd ever think of with okra is gumbo. 28, she's burnt out. Too big, too many logistics. And who's going to buy it? She was barely breaking it even. The guy that did Bass Pro Shops wanted it and bought it from her, gives her enough money that she went and got a backpack, and for a year and a half, she traveled alone throughout Indonesia, Thailand, New Zealand, Portugal, etc. for a year and a half, getting rid of the stress and strain of running the empire. She comes back here, and my only agreement was, Sweetness, you got to let me know every night where you are with a text or email, because if you disappear off the planet, I want to at least know where you were last. So every night for a year and a half, she would let me know I'm in Tonga. She's been a month in Tonga. And one night she talked to me on the phone. She said, Dad, an elephant just walked through the yard. She was in Thailand. And she comes back, she buys a little van, and for a year, half a year, 6 months, she lives in a van with her dog. She calls me up one day and she said, Dad, I told her, look, this place is doing so good, I can buy you a place. Find where you want to settle, we'll buy it. Remember, now I was almost bankrupt when I opened this place. If this place hadn't gone, I'd have been zero, $900 a month, that'd be it. You know what I mean? And when I opened it, I was only glad that it paid my apartment rent. I never thought this thing would spin off the abundance that it had for the three of us. Never. But botanicals have just exploded in this town. It's a college town, so, you know. And so she gets in the van, and 6 months later, she said, Dad, I found my home. I'm thinking it's Boulder, Colorado, Asheville, North Carolina, Santa Cruz, California. I said, tell me about it. She says, it's Paradise Valley, Montana. She said, Dad, as soon as I came around the bend in the road and saw the valley, I knew this was my home. I said, Sweetness, it's not your weather pattern. You don't know anyone within 2,000 miles. It's rural, it's dry, it's cold as, it's cold as hell in the winter. I said, you're kidding me. She said, I know it's my home. I said, well, find what you want out there. I guess you know what you're doing. She calls back a few weeks later, Dad, a cult settled this 26,000 acres in Paradise Valley and brought their whole cult here. Not a cult, it was a spiritual movement. Summit Lighthouse is what it's called, by Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Actually, I have one of her books somewhere. Oh, I do. I just happen to have that here. So this woman bought 26,000 acres. Can you imagine? And she broke a lot of it into 20-acre parcels so that the different movement members could buy it. And she built 7 bunkers that would hold 100 person each. One bunker hold 500 people. We own one of the 7 bunkers. So 25 feet below my daughter's property, over 20 acres, is a professional grade that costs millions of dollars. It has a men's dorm, a women's dorm, a men's bathroom, a women's bathroom, a kitchen, an infirmary, a power plant room, a water treatment room. We own that outside of Yellowstone. So just in closing, you can begin to see part of my legacy, my masterpiece of everything I've done, and I've written 12 books. I did 150 events in maximum security prisons. I did 20 on Native American reservations. As I mentioned, I did 54 in Jamaica. But my masterpiece of my life, the greatest thing I've ever done is parented this woman. And she now at 24 opened a yoga empire, and now she runs this place with me in the winter, and she's getting ready. We're going to take over that area and make it yet more botanicals. She married a beautiful human being, James, my son-in-law, and she owns. They own 20 acres with a 100-person bunker on it, right? And my son-in-law worked for American Express, made a lot of money, had $1 million apartment in New York, a big Harley motorcycle, ego, and he got a kidney problem, and for 2.5 years he went through hell, and he came out the other side of that all about love. And they met each other at a Fish concert. They're both Fish fans, and they now live on that property. And then the house I bought 4 minutes from where I'm sitting just happened to have an in-law apartment on the first floor that I never thought about them ever living with me. So every winter they redecorated it to look beautiful. Every winter they're coming here and living with me and coming here during the week and running this place with me. So anyway, in closing, as you can see, it's easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Who are you? Why did you come? How do you get deeper and deeper into this? Is look at every fear you have, and don't ever expect to get it to zero. When you get to zero, you're like him. Mm-hmm. You go from being the person Jesus into being the Christ. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't expect to get that in this lifetime because I still have a few attachments around romantic love. But I want to close with this thought. Because if you're watching this, the last attachment you have is not money, it's not fame, it's not revenge, it's not power over people. My bet is the last attachment you have is finding that wonderful mate, right? I mean, not that you wouldn't like a nice home, a nice car, a nice job, etc., but you're at the point now but the Course in Miracles says something very profound. The special love romantic relationship is the ego's last attack on God. That means after all these lifetimes, money and revenge and power, you finally get to a lifetime, you know it's about love. The ego, which is your belief in separation of everything that we've been talking about, the ego says, yeah, I don't know why we went all those dead-end streets before. Now go find that perfect love in that perfect mate outside yourself, not within. And that's why the very first commandment that the Creator gave us was, thou shalt have no other gods before me. When I was a kid growing up in Atlanta, they said God's vengeful. I'm thinking God's in the synagogue when I went to the services. He's a vengeful God. He's a demanding God. The very first thing is, have no other gods before me. And I'm sitting in Sunday school thinking, this guy needs therapy. I mean, I'm not vengeful. And the God's vengeful, there's something the matter here. That's not what he said. He said, don't make anything God but the divine presence within you. Because if you do, you're not going to be happy. Well, the last attachment is that perfect love relationship. And I grew up on all the R&B, all the Motown, with two concepts. Either you're going to meet my girl and be happy the rest of your life, or you're going to lose my girl. And the name of that song was What Becomes of the Brokenhearted, that once had loved and now departed. So if you're watching this, you can have a great relationship, you can have a great physical life, you can have affection. Just remember that your happiness resides within you and can be claimed at any moment you decide it can be claimed, no matter your outside circumstances. And I've struggled with that since I heard my first codependent love song. You know what I mean? And I was personal friends with Otis Redding, and he played at my senior prom. So I was deep into Motown codependent love songs. You see it? Mm-hmm. So as you pursue and seek that out and have a preference for it, two things with that. Remember that happiness, true happiness, not just titillation and preference being met and everything, true inner happiness at the deepest level is by living in the moment and loving and knowing that nothing is needed outside yourself. That's who you are. And when you remember that a divinity sent you here with a spark within you, there is nothing to fear. There is never to be unhappy. You know what I mean? And you will be led to the right relationship, the right piece of land, the right job, etc. So that was a good journey into one love, wasn't it? Yeah. So we'll put this on the internet soon, and whoever you are out there, I don't want to encourage you to come find me or email me. My life's complicated enough, but everything I have to say is in my 12 books, and thanks for joining us tonight. Take care.